Greetings everyone, Kevin aka The Bandit here on my first video in a set of videos that I plan on putting together to help brand new flight sim enthusiasts get into Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. Quick note about myself, I am new to the flight simulator. I have played driving simulators for years, but when this new Microsoft Flight Simulator came out, I decided, hey, I'm going to give this a shot, and immediately fell in love with it, but also quickly realized this is one complex son of a bitch. There's a lot of definite complex things in here, and I spent a lot of time on the internet, searching Google, trying to find how can I do things, right? All kinds of tutorials, found a lot of YouTube tutorials. There's a lot of really good ones out there. I'm not trying to compete with any of the real good in-depth YouTube tutorials that are out there. My purpose here is try to get to the point, show you the bare minimum that you need to be able to do certain things. I am not going to be able to get into the technical aspects of the why or what things are because I don't know myself, right? So with that being said, there's a potential that I may say something that's inaccurate here. Just know that going in, but hopefully you'll get what you need to at least learn the basics of how to fly, the different airplanes, takeoff, landings, all that good stuff. Now, the purpose of this first video is basically to get used to the interface here, basic setup, but we're not even going to fly in this video. We're just going to talk about the main navigation screens. I've already loaded the game. I did that on purpose. If you've done it already on your end, you know why. This game is a beast and it takes forever to load. They have been improving it over time, but it still takes a long time. So for your sanity, I skip that. So I'm on the first page that you'll land on once you get logged in and activate the game. And you can see I have my world map, which is what we use to pick where we're going to fly. The world map's really cool. I'll show you that in a few minutes. We also have a couple of cool things on here, like some landing challenges. You can do some flight training here, as well as there's other challenges down here at the bottom where you can do not just landing challenges, but you can also do what these called bush trips, which are kind of really long flights that you can take with different segments that will take many hours to complete. First thing I want to look at, though, I want to go to the options. This is probably the first place you're going to go before you even try to fly, is you're going to have to look at the options. Now, I have a pretty good machine, I'm not going to lie, but this game kills it. I mean, even though I have a really good machine, there are times my frames per second will drop in the single digits. But I leave it set kind of high because I think it looks pretty. So let's start off looking at the general. You notice we have the general section, we have the assistance, and we have controls. General is where we're going to go in and do things like our video settings, our sound settings, our data settings. Assistance is where we're going to go in and tell the computer, hey, here's how easy I want you to make this game for me. Oh, I'm sorry, this simulator. How dare I say game? And I know I've already said it a few times. And then finally, it's the controls. It's pretty much self-explanatory what that's for. So let's go to general. Now in the general, there are a lot of different options here. I am not going over all the options. That is not the purpose. This is just to sort of walk you through the basics. Here are your graphics settings. You're going to want to tweak these to get basically what you're looking for. Are you looking for performance, or are you looking for all the good eye candy? Or are you looking for the best bang for your buck, sort of in the middle? Mine currently is set to eye candy mode. I am looking for the best look while I'm out there flying. I do have a couple of things tweaked, but for the most part, you can see everything is set to ultra. I pay for that when I'm flying, but it's not horrible at times. There are a couple of times it'll go down on me, but it's manageable. There are some other websites out there that have some good tricks on here's what you should turn on, here's what you should turn off. I definitely recommend that if you're looking for performance, you go read some of those and make your settings as you see fit here. Camera, it's where you're going to set the different camera options you have, like your external camera, your internal camera, your so you got the cockpit options. There's a bunch of different camera options here. I'm not going over that as well. What I do want to go over are a couple of key areas. First of all, traffic. In the traffic section, you can set your traffic to real-time online, and that's going to actually give you a full populated world with AI traffic. So you could be flying, and you will see real people flying around. You will also see airlines. So you can be flying and all of a sudden the Southwest plane flies right by you. It's really cool. Nameplates, I have this set to on. This lets me see the name of the plane coming by me. If it's a user, I can see it's a user. If it's a generated computer plane, I can see that as well. It does kind of get a little annoying because it's really big. Okay, so you can choose to turn this off if you want. And then these are some other settings like the airport density. How many cars do you want to see or boats do you want to see driving around? Again, this is a preference. Data is the big one. This game uses a lot of data, online data, streaming. So what do I mean by that? Well, from what I'm gathering, what happens here is this world that we're flying in is actually not being generated by our computers. It's being generated by the Microsoft cloud servers out there. They're crunching all the data and they're feeding it to us through our bandwidth. Okay. Now I have fiber and I have unlimited bandwidth, meaning they're not going to charge me if I go over a certain cap. So that's not a big deal for me. I leave it set to, pretty much give me everything you can give me. But there are some tweaks you can do here, like you could limit your data. Okay, so if you want to make sure you only use so much, you can set limits here. You can also set warnings. And another thing is the cache. Now, the rolling cache, from what I gather, is basically if you fly over an area and as that's being streamed to you, it's being basically, if you have it turned on, it'll save what it's streamed on your hard drive temporarily. So if you turn around and fly back over that area, it's not going to have to stream it to you through the bandwidth because you've already got it on your computer. And then that should limit how much streaming you have coming into your computer. I've got mine set to 10 gigs. You can put whatever works for you. I also have mine set to be put on my D drive and not on my main drive because it's very small and it's mainly just from operating system. Now there is also something called manual cache, and this is cool. What you can do with manual cache is you can go in and you can zoom into a certain area. Let's say you plan on doing a lot of flying around your house. You can go and zoom in around your area you live and tell it to download that to your computer. Kind of permanently. I say kind of because you can always go and delete it, but the computer won't, the system or the game won't delete it automatically for you. And you are limited to how big of an area you can download. The more you zoom in, the higher detail apparently it saves. I've done this for a few areas. I'm not going to go into it because if you do, it's really slow to load. I've done it for a few areas because my hope was it would improve my visual performance. In my experience, that wasn't the case. The actual frames per second didn't seem to change. I'm not sure. It might have looked visually better, but the game looks so damn good, I couldn't tell, to be honest with you. I've actually gone in and deleted it. Now, I'm sure it does at least benefit the streaming side, right? If you've already got it there, it's not going to have to stream that to you. So that's a choice you get to do. You get to make whether you want to manually cache certain areas so they're always there. Again, areas that you're going to fly around a lot, or maybe some big cities like New York. But like I said, if you want the extreme detail, you have to zoom in. New York is so big, you'd have to actually do a bunch of different segments to get all that. Okay, that's all I'm going to go over on the general. Now, the next one we'll look at is the assistance area. In the assistance area, this is where you can say, hey, I want to make this extremely easy for me. I'm very new. I want to set this thing up to do most of the work for me. I just want to fly around and look at stuff. Or I want this to be as close to really flying a plane as possible. There are many, many, many different aids that you can turn on or off here. You'll see I have most of them turned off on mine because I'm going for that realism. The only thing I do have turned on, and I'm going to show you another place to do it, I'm not even going to do it here, is I do let the computer manage the ATC, the air traffic control, for me, because I don't really want to worry about that right now. I like to focus on flying because I'm new to flying, but I'm sure over time I'll take control of that as well. So these are the different things you can turn on there. And then finally, controls. Now, I do want to go over a couple things with the controls really fast. Basically, when you load this up, you'll see three main areas: the keyboard, the mouse, and any controller you have plugged in, assuming you have a controller. Now, the keyboard and the mouse are already going to have some basic keys defined. And this is really good to go in if you want to see what key I need to press to do what function. You can look for it and see it there. But the key is also setting up your flight stick or your Xbox controller if you have one of those. Now, the thing that I want to point out, I'm not going to walk you through how to set up your joystick. There are a lot of tutorials out there to do that. I know there's a person named Squirrel that has some good ones out there on YouTube. You can Google that to find those. But I just want to point out something that's kind of tricky. When you first go to your flight stick, you may not see anything right here. This will be completely empty. And the reason why is because it by default filters to assigned buttons only. So things that have been assigned. Well, if it's the first time, you have nothing assigned to that controller, especially if there's not already sort of a profile for that controller, which mine didn't have. What you'll want to do is assign the buttons. Now, there are a metric shit ton of options in here. The good news is if you hit this little arrow next to assigned, you can see here's all, and this is where I'm saying there are a metric shit ton. There are just option after option after option. But you can also click over to essentials, and this is what Microsoft has determined as these are the essential things you need to be able to do. So this is probably the first place you'll want to go in and look. For example, the flight control surfaces. Under primary control, this is where I set my joystick up for, going up or down, left or right, my rudder, okay? Take note of the names here because there are some things that can get a little tricky that seem redundant but are a little bit different, okay? So this is where you'll set your controls up. Keep in mind, this filter by default will set to assigned only. You're gonna wanna go through and pick what you want, okay? This is totally up to each person and how they wanna do it. I am not gonna give you any recommendations on what buttons you should or should not assign. All right, now let's go back over here to the world map. This is where you're going to go to select where you're going to fly. The world map is extremely cool. I will go over kind of how it works in more detail. But the cool thing is, if you look at the flight conditions area, I have mine set to live players and live weather, which if you do live players, by the way, live weather is automatic. And what that basically means is it's supposed to be real world weather. Now there are some bugs right now and it doesn't always work correctly, but it's kind of cool that when you're looking at this map here, this is the weather that you're seeing. As a matter of fact, we had a hurricane come through not long ago, and I believe this is the remnants of that hurricane up here. It started way down here and worked its way up. A lot of people like to fly to the hurricanes. You'll see that. But this is basically how you can find where you want to fly, where you want to set as your departure, what's going to be your arrival. As you zoom in, more places will become available. You can also set your own default locations if you want. But this is going to be your go-to for taking off. And with that, I will end the basic introduction of the navigation of the main menus. In our next video, I will walk you through the basics of kind of getting out there. We're not going to take off yet. I'm going to walk you through how to start up a plane and kind of the basics of navigating the airport and getting to the runway. And with that, I will end this. Thank you for watching. Let me know if you have any suggestions for a future video.